This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.
Well, hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the show, Beyond BMR tonight. And, I don't know why that happens. I got to put up my background here. I feel a little lost without the background. Maybe it's up there and I don't know it. I don't know. Maybe when I make the screen smaller. Anyways, thanks for joining the show. Got a fantastic show slated for you tonight. Doug Hajicek joins us here in a few minutes. Of course, you all know Doug from the iconic MonsterQuest. He's the producer, the man behind the making of that. And Doug's much more talented. He's got so much going on. He's a producer of all television, films, and series. He's an inventor. He's got a publication house. Doug is like the master of all trades. And unlike me, I am the master of all trades, but I'm, what's that analogy? Master of none. Doug is definitely a master. I'm giving him some high praise. So welcome Doug when he comes up here in a moment. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfootmichiganrob on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Texas Front Porch, Donnie Cho Says Stuff, Monica Rollins, Our Paranormal World, and there's one more, Paranormal Paul. So check out our network. It's awesome across the board. And I appreciate that. If we're also found on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, wherever podcasts are found. So please check that out. Don't forget to hit the like button. And I got to thank everybody who's bought my books that are out there. You guys know it by now, those who have been following me for a while. Bigfoot Michiganrob presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1, Book 2, both found on Amazon. Simply type Bigfoot Michiganrob in your Amazon browser. They will pull up. For those of you that have bought it, please leave a review. It does help analytics. You all know it's analytics these days. And we've got one other piece of business to discuss before we get started with our awesome guests. First, I'm going to bring up the lovely Krista.
Hey.
What's up, Krista? And I don't know why my background won't pull up here really quick. I got to see.
You got a forest behind you.
I got a forest behind me. Yeah, I like to deaden out the black a little bit, There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Well, BMR's got another one. BMR's got another one here somewhere. But yes, how's it going, Chris? There we go.
I'm doing good. It's Tuesday. That's better than Monday, so it's all good.
Tuesday's definitely better than Monday. We finally had a 65-degree day yesterday. So I was outside all day.
Here today.
78? Boy, I tell you. 65 yesterday. And then today it was 50. And guess what, Krista? Michigan.
We're getting snow again?
We're getting pelted with snow.
Keep it up there.
Pelted with snow per usual, per Michigan. It should probably melt pretty fast because next week is going to be in the 70s all week long. So the weatherman says. Greatest job in the world, the weatherman. The only job you can have and be totally wrong every single day that you're working on and not get fired.
That's right. That's true. They say it's going to be in the 70s here too all week, and I mean it. Honestly, we noticed that the trees were starting to bud leaves. So,
well, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get started on all my yard activities that I do. And before we bring up Doug, of course, we've got that conference that I mentioned earlier, and you're gonna have to read it because you know me, I can't read it without my cheaters. But it is the Crossing Realms Conference. September 19th and 20th, Eagleton Civic Center in Richmond. And as I mentioned, Doug Hajicek, one of our sponsors, will be joining us. So why don't you go through the speakers and the hosts and who else what we got going on?
Okay. So we have speaking. I'm going to start backwards.
Sure.
We've got Martin Groves and Miguel Ramirez and Chris Garitano's film will be on Friday night. Then on Saturday, we have Josh Hurd, Heather Mosier from Small Town Monsters, Will Lunsford, Lady Ann Celine, Ron Murphy, Dr. Dean Bertram, Greg Ogles, Frankie Camballata, Dan Klein, both from Haunted Souls, and they're the ones bringing the haunted car. And our friend Sir Brian Bowden, he'll be there with us. And then our special guest, we have Ken Gerhard, Dana Stricker, she's going to be there doing some readings. We have Brent Thomas, Paranormal Portal, Ryan Edwards. He's the youngest kid that I know that has so much under his belt already.
Yes.
Mike Familiant. I already mentioned Chris Garitano, Linda Eastburn. She's great. If you guys haven't checked out her channel, go check it out. Dave Glidden and Danielle Stedman, Donnie Cho, and Dale Boswell. And it's hosted by us Misfits.
Yeah, all of us. And so you guys know who we are. You know, we're on 7 days a week, damn near. And yeah, we'll all be there. It's going to be a hell of a good show, hell of a good time for everybody. And we cover the UFO phenomena, the paranormal, and cryptids. So everything's under one blanket, hence the Crossing Realms Conference.
Also, since the ghost hunt sold out, Kathy has opened up 2 time slots to if people wanted a haunted ghost tour during the daytime of the museum. So I think tickets for that are only $10. 100% of that goes to the museum. We're not pocketing any of that or none of that. It's all hers. So, if you really wanted to go to the museum but didn't get the tickets for the ghost hunt, that's a good way to do it. And they'll take you through the whole, like where all the activity is, what we've seen in different rooms and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's awesome that we're doing this everything at once. And it's great that they're doing that and setting that aside, because we're talking to Doug backstage. Thank you to Keith for gifting 5 bigger Bigfoot Michigan Rob Pirates R80s. That reminds me, you can become a BMR Pirate. Join today. Join the many. Join the few. Yep. That's right. 5 new pirates in house. And of course, the super chat's open. Another great way to support the show and what we do around here. Thank you to Keith. He's actually from Oakland County, Michigan. That's where he hails from.
Cool.
So thanks, Keith, for that. So with that being said, we're got the advertisements all the way, and we've got the fantastic guest who I'm going to bring up, Mr. Doug Hajicek. And if I can clear that, thank you, Keith, for that. And hey, Doug.
Hey, hello. Hey, Krista. Hey, Rob.
Good to see you.
It's good to be here. I've been wrestling with this flu or COVID or God knows what. Something.
Yeah, you're a real trooper coming on, I gotta say.
Yeah,
I mentioned to you guys earlier, the only thing that's been keeping me alive is my cough.
I get that.
Oh, it's just nasty grunge. Yeah.
I do understand that, and this, and especially when you have that deep cough, it certainly does keep you alive, because you're like, wow, I just coughed that up, and it hurts your lungs, your throat. It's like, ugh. But I'm glad you're doing better. I talked to you a few days ago, and you said, "Yeah, I'll be there," and you were telling me. I said, "Oh boy, I'm gonna call him this morning,ng and everything's checked out." So I could
have blood running out of my ears. I'd be here.
Well,
yeah.
Well, too kind, Doug. Too kind.
Yes.
Show's got to go on.
You know what? That's right, because you know what it's all about, being a producer. I mean, all the things that you've done in your lifetime, as I mentioned earlier. That's a key element, isn't it? The show always must go on. Yeah.
When we were doing MonsterQuest, I mean, you have strict deadlines. Like, you cannot miss a day on any milestone. They say your rough cut's got to be in on Tuesday. It's got to be there. They don't give a crap if you're all sick. You know, and so you get used to kind of living in that strict world. And I generally don't Don't come up with excuses to bow out of podcasts or whatever. I'd do it from bed if I had to.
I can't appreciate that. Chris,
sure.
she's the same way. We're all the same way. The only time that I don't have a show on a scheduled day, because I've had the same schedule now for, about 3 years. I miss a show if Krista, if I'm out of power, because I lose power in this part of town, Doug, 3 times a year. I mean, and it always happens on a show night, it seems.
Yep.
But we have such a nice group of individuals that work with us all together that will usually fill in, and the show usually still goes on. The only day I take off, because I do have a Thursday afternoon show, but Thursday afternoons is Thanksgiving. That's the only show I take off out of the schedule.
So how many podcasts do you guys do a week?
I do 4, and Krista,
Whoa,
you
how do you do that?
I do.
I don't sleep.
2, 3, 4, 5. I do 5 a week.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, podcasts are a lot of work.
Yeah. And then Tex does 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Monica does 1, Donnie does 1, and Paul does, I think, 2 or 3. Our other members. So you can see us. We're always on. Turn on your alert bells, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of respect coming from me, man.
Well, and it's too. I work a full-time job as well.
Gee.
So it's a lot of work.
And do you have pets, Krista, too, and kids and
pets, kids, you name it, the whole 9 yards. Yep.
Yeah, and now putting together the conference, the major heavy lifting is out of the way, and I gotta say that Krista did a lot of that, and we've all chipped in, I will say, but Krista's, she's on the ball with all that, does a fantastic job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So.
I appreciate you, Doug, for helping with some sponsorship there.
Yeah. No problemo. We'll support you guys.
Thank you so much. And
well, what in the heck do you guys want to talk about tonight?
Well, I know of course, a lot of people know you from MonsterQuest, iconic show. I grew up. I first saw In Search Of, then I found MonsterQuest, and now that you're on, I have to ask you really quickly. It seems like I can find all these older run shows on television, on whether you have an app or what. But MonsterQuest, do they not play that anymore for free on basic television? I
don't think so. I think it is right now on television over in the UK.
Okay.
On Blaze in Australia. But you have to go to YouTube, Amazon. I think there's some other streaming places that have it, but YouTube's a good source.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's on like the Roku channel too or something.
Yeah, it may be on stuff like that.
Yeah,
I really don't know. But
I have to take a look into that, because I'll admit I haven't seen all of them, but the ones I've seen I always love.
You haven't seen? I have seen every one of them.
Well, every year I call my old executive producer and say, "Ready to make more?"
Hey, I tell you that, I gotta tell you, Doug. I was going to mention this to you. I know, just me, little old me telling Doug. I mean, if you came back with that, it would. I think that you would not lose the beat, and it'd probably be even more popular. Because I think in today's media, I think that shows like that probably would be more popular than.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Because when I did MonsterQuest back in the day, it was not appreciated. I mean, it was appreciated by their, right. It was their highest rated show, but there were a lot of people that dogged it. I mean, they just didn't appreciate it. But the audience seems to appreciate MonsterQuest more and more and more. Yeah. I get more, I would say, love on the show now than I ever did.
Wow.
Because people realize that it's a step above the shows that are available. Because I always tell people, I went and did MonsterQuest because I was a researcher, not because I wanted to just make money or do something to produce. Oh, gee, that's a popular topic. That's why I want to do it. Yeah. I did it as a way to have money to do forensics and science tests and communicate with scientists. So for me, it was a love of research, not producing. Different than a production company goes, oh yeah, it's a real popular topic. Let's produce a show. No. But that's what sets MonsterQuest apart. And it's what people sense when they watch it. They're like, whoa, there's something different about it. And it's because as I produced it, I did it from wanting answers.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
ahead, Kristen.
I was just going to say, it's a wide genre of monsters too. Everything from, fish, different types of fish to, Bigfoot and dogmen.
Yeah. We covered a lot of topics. Once in a while they made me do a topic I wasn't too keen on. That just didn't really interest me, but I did it. I had to. But I would love to see it get done again. I think it would be more popular now. I agree with you, Rob. It would be more popular now if they did it than it was back then by far.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be on your back burner, your plate, something. And
I'll pitch it to him again soon, coming up here. So
I'll come help you out.
I was thinking on having a number of people on the phone with me.
Yeah. Hey,
people that can, maybe try to help get through to the executive producers over there.
Yeah. So you had mentioned, you had a passion for research early on. And so let me ask you, so prior to MonsterQuest, what were some of the things that you looked into and discovered or not discovered?
Oh, man.
I do know one thing. I don't want to turn the show sideways, but did you invent an underwater photographer or film? And you captured giant squid?
Well, yeah. I was a wildlife researcher before I started really being involved in TV. I built the world's first underwater camera system. That was a webcam that went to the bottom of Lake Superior back in the 90s. It was the first wildlife cam I did for Discovery Channel. They're like, what's a wildlife cam? I mean, nobody even understood it. And so we did it. And back when the internet was dial-up, we actually pulled it off with a lot of compression technology of the video. So it was more like still, you know what I mean? It was very rugged video. But I did that, and that was a huge project called the Benthic Explorer. And then I was really wanting to see what goes on in a bear's den, a wild bear den. And so I figured out a way to put a camera out in the middle of the forest. I built like a little TV station, basically, used satellite technology, and put a long tube with another tube on the inside with a camera system, and then put that in a wild bear den so we could try to capture the birth and just see what black bears do all winter, when they're down. And so I did that. The first time the births never happened. So then years later, another op occurred and did it. And we ended up streamed into every elementary school in the world with that bear cam. It was really good. And we raised a lot of money. We raised almost $1 million and helped finish and expand the North American Bear Center with that camera.
Wow.
And then I did a thing where we discovered I wanted to put a camera in a beaver lodge that had never been done. It's another dimension. What goes on in a beaver lodge all winter? Yeah. So over 3 years of hard work of chiseling through this beaver lodge, which we could only do in the winter to try to get this camera tube in it. Because if you do it wrong, they're just going to put sticks and crap in front of the lens. So we had to do it correctly. And so did that. And within an hour, we had realized there were muskrats living with the beavers and grooming the beavers.
Interesting.
And then watching the muskrats do all the bedding, the beavers do all the sides and the roof as the water levels rose. But it was the first time two mammals had been seen cohabitating, actual cohabitation. And then I just kept doing wildlife stuff, and then the opportunity for to do a show called Giganto, the Real King Kong,
Okay.
for NBC came up, and then NBC at some point pushed it off to History Channel. I did it for History Channel, and it was like a big hit. And they called me the next day and go, "Hey, can you do more of these?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So then we negotiated all night long until, God, I remember it was like midnight. I signed the contract, and that became MonsterQuest.
Wow.
Now, when you went into MonsterQuest, did you have any idea that you would be investigating or tackling stories in the cryptid world?
Sure. I knew it would be, everything. Once again, I was just, I'm interested in I look at cryptids or Bigfoot, it's just wildlife.
Right.
It's something that's got to make a living out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to do things and have properties and things that they do that we just don't know about, just like beavers and muskrats or
Right.
fish. When I did that underwater camera, I had a platform so I could film the small copepods migrating up and down the water column. I incorporated what they call a SAISH meter so we could study the tides in Lake Superior with the moons. Had never been seen before. I did fish intelligence tests. I wanted to see how long it would take to train fish, with different cues and music cues, and so here was this great opportunity, and we did it. It's just absolutely nuts. So I'm just like this crazy kid with a lot of dumb ideas that I was always, when I was young, trying to get help from other kids to help with experiments and things. And I just kind of kept doing that. It's still what I do.
Wow.
I love building teams. And so, yeah. And yes, the giant squid did happen. Once again, MonsterQuest. And I'm like, oh, what's one of the first things I want to do?
Yeah.
I want to get footage because I had wanted to do that since I was a little kid. Get footage of a true giant squid to prove they exist, and to photograph them in their wild habitat alive. And we ended up accomplishing that.
Yeah.
So, and there's a 2-hour special on history in their vault. They call it the History Vault.
Okay.
That's another like MonsterQuest that no one's ever seen. It's in their vault, though. It's a 2-hour thing where they document that is the world's first Architeuthis ducks that had ever been filmed in history.
Wow.
So, yeah, something, I'm very proud of it. But once again, that's the stuff you accomplish when you just want to do wildlife research versus just making TV.
Right.
Big difference. It's a huge difference.
And I imagine, I don't want to talk too much about the television side, but I imagine you as a researcher just wanting to, with your aspirations, I imagine it was kind of frustrating dealing with all these other producers and directors where their narrative is different than yours. Did you clash a lot with that on the show at all?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
No, we didn't have any issues. I'm also a good TV producer, and I just combined my curiosity with being a regular old TV producer.
Well,
I've been doing TV shows since 1985. In fact, my first series is still on the air that I started in the 80s. It's still going. And it's now second generation host. It's gone through now. Their daughter's taken over as host. So it's kind of fun. But I've done a lot of TV shows that people have no idea. People don't know I did stuff for the Speed Channel. I did shows on babies being born for Discovery Health. I've done all sorts of crazy shows and series besides MonsterQuest. But people aren't aware of it because I just kept it to myself.
Yeah.
I've done golf shows, Krista.
golf.
Hey, that works, man.
Shows on golf. I mean,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
When you're passionate about something in that genre, in the industry, it doesn't matter as long as you enjoy producing, doing the research, and just producing something for folks.
Yeah,
I can get that. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But my heart is in cryptid research, wildlife research, getting answers. And there's still, more things I want answers on.
Mm-hmm. Were you a believer before MonsterQuest?
Yeah, I was, because of footprints I had found up in the Arctic.
Oh, wow.
I was way up in the Arctic on an expedition where I was trying to get footage of a giant lake trout and that I knew existed. I'd come to this theory that there were female lake trout that didn't breed,
Mm-hmm.
and they just just got bigger and bigger. They absorbed their eggs, and eventually they just became cannibals of their own kind.
Wow.
Because I had seen a 6-foot long lake trout when I was up in the Arctic.
6 foot.
6 foot long. Yep. Trout. I know that's like crazy, but this thing, I remember I was actually reeling in about a 30-pound lake trout, which is huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's about 44 inches long and 19 inches in girth. It's a big lake trout. And this big like serpent-like thing came out of the rocks, and I thought it was like a dude, like a man swimming, and it came after this trout. And I looked at it, and I could see it finally. And I went, "Oh my God, that's a lake trout. That thing's got to be well over 6 feet long." And the guide that I was with, he looked at it and he goes, "I see those all the time."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we see those." And he said, "But they're too big to catch." And I'm like, "Okay." So I wanted answers on that. So I got a hold of some fisheries scientists, and we all made an expedition up north, way up on Selwyn Lake, and it was on a pea break. We found footprints, Bigfoot footprints, and there was no way they could be anything else. Real desolate area, 6-hour float plane ride to get there. But I don't know if I've told you this story before, Rob. I mean, I know Krista hasn't heard it, but there was a footprint in front of a tree trunk and then one behind the tree trunk. Okay. That means it stepped over the tree.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 7-foot tall stunted spruce tree. So it went over that tree like you would a weed.
Wow.
In a field.
Oh, wow.
It just stepped right over that. And that's where my buddies go, "We need to leave now." That's what they literally go, "We need to leave right now." And I'm like, "No, we're not. We're going to keep going." So we went out and we got past this little, since the trees are very stunted up in the Arctic. And so there was just beyond this, like 30 trees, there was open tundra. And there you could see the footprints going off into the tundra.
I mean, that had to have been a sizable footprint. I mean, to step over a 7-foot tree.
Well, I didn't have a tape measure, but I believe they were 16 inches.
Okay.
Jeez.
And very wide. And some of them were in clear sand as they came out of the lake. The water was very shallow around there. I don't know what it was doing in the shallow water, but it came out of the lake, walked up on pea gravel, and then into the tundra or moss, and then in front of those little group of trees. But to see that footprint right in front of that trunk and then one right behind it.
Wow.
That's kind of
scary.
Like scary and mind blowing all at the same time. I mean, how do you process that?
Yeah, I was a big dude. I mean, definitely for sure an 8-9 foot creature. Just walked right over that 7-foot tree.
Wow.
And I'm like,
that's nothing.
But that was life changing because now I'm coming back home. I don't even care about the damn trout now at that point.
Yeah.
I'm just like, something made those footprints.
And a 6-foot trout is like, you don't get those in the Great Lakes.
Exactly. But I remember I finally got a hold of somebody. His name was Matt Moneymaker.
Oh.
This was back like 90 something. I don't know, 93, 1994. I get a hold of Matt. And Matt's like, "Yeah, these things are like everywhere where there's, woods, water, and hills."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Well," and he told me all these facts and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Well, we need to get this information out there. It's got to be a way we can do a science show."
Mm-hmm.
And so I pitched it to Matt first, and he's like, "Yeah, let's be awesome." you know, and I think Jeff Meldrum was a kid practically, but he was, you know, working on the topic, and there was John Bindernagel. Other than that, there wasn't much. So anyhow, we ended up doing Legend Meet Science.
Very cool.
You know, that was not easy to get a network to buy that damn thing. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That was tough. But finally, and we talked the network into buying it, and did it, and it was great. You know, and now I'm working on Legend Meet Science 2 very hard.
Wow.
Which I hope will be, you know, it's going to be probably a 3-hour doc, 3 hours long. It's going to be good. It's going to cover a lot of new categories. But my problem is, because I have, you know, ADHD, I keep coming up with new things I want to do. And instead of, like, I want to incorporate, now I want to look for another chemical or it's basically a molecular chain in Bigfoot hair that I believe would be very unique just to Bigfoot hair. And it's called a porphyrin.
Oh, wow.
And a porphyrin is it's like chlorophyll. It converts UV energy into light. And I believe that molecular chain is in Bigfoot hair.
Oh, wow.
But see, this is the problem. Now I got to find a guy that can, or some scientist that can analyze hair for porphyrin. So I keep getting a little bit distracted, and I'm still waiting for results from NC State on many samples that I've sent him. But the good thing is I just got some actual blood that's been highly vetted. And now I'm like, okay, I can't screw this up. So I've got to find 5 other labs to get all these samples out. And I've got a meeting again tomorrow on that.
Wow.
So anyhow, everybody just be patient. Legend Meet Science 2 will be mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
I just got to be, you know, I have to do what I do. And I don't have the deadline, which is kind of bad for a guy with ADHD.
Well, yeah, a deadline usually pushes you forward and I can see where you're going with that.
But it also limits then what I can learn. And I really want this to be groundbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it will, but if I get a new idea and I'm like, oh man, that could be really groundbreaking. Because one of the controversies with the Bigfoot hair is it's like human hair, except it's got a tapered end. It's got a fragmented medulla or missing medulla, which some people do. So that doesn't prove crap. And naturally worn end doesn't really prove anything either, because they always say, well, some person maybe never got a haircut. You know, it's got that tapered end. But if I can find a new chemical chain in the hair that does, it's human scaling, human this, human that. Oh, but there's something different about it that doesn't do anything else. But a porphyrin glows under UV light, just so you know.
And for those who do not know what a porphyrin is, that's what part of the is that a porphyrin?
Well, it's like, okay, flying squirrels glow pink under UV light, and it's this porphyrin chemical, or it's not really a chemical, it's a molecular chain.
Okay. Yeah.
But it causes like flying squirrels to glow pink, which is a fairly new discovery. There's certain mammals that glow under UV light. Well, I've always believed Bigfoots for many years can see in the UV spectrum, along with maybe the IR spectrum. A lot of guys suspect they see in the IR. I don't care about if they can see in the IR. I care if they can see in the UV for many reasons. And this porphyrin thing will also possibly prove what type of vision they have. So
interesting.
That's fun. It's fun stuff.
That's really. I'm looking forward to that. And I've often heard too regarding the hair of Bigfoot. I don't know if you've heard this. A couple different researchers have mentioned this to me about the hair of a Bigfoot. The reason that they stay hidden, one of the many theories would be that their hair is translucent.
Sure, right, because it doesn't have the pigmented core.
Okay.
Right. And that could, I mean, that would possibly offer some camouflage because it would pick up the surrounding colors, right? There's always a reason while, I mean, it doesn't have a segmented medulla for nothing. There's a reason for it. It could be because maybe it needs the airspace. Maybe it offers better insulation. Maybe it's camouflage reasons. Maybe it's multiple reasons.
Right.
And it was really Mike Ann. I was doing testing with UV light on Bigfoot hair, and it would glow just barely. It was like nothing terribly significant, not much more than human hair would, right? But Mike's like, oh, well, you should try to look. So I'll put the UV flashlight on it, and then look at it through your iPhone. Try that, okay? So I tried that. It was night and day. It was like all of a sudden now it popped. It was pink.
Wow.
So it had more glow than human hair under looking at it through a sensitive iPhone chip. So if it has porphyrin in it, it maybe isn't a ton, but it would be really interesting. But that would be the element that would make it glow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Amy, or not Amy, it was somebody else in here while you're talking about the glowing hair. Real quick, Life with Bobby. She asked, any other animal hair that glows under UV light? Do you have any others?
Blind squirrels do. Platypuses do. I believe there's some caribou that do. There are some mammals. So they're, you know, the whole flying squirrel thing. I don't know if my voice would hold up, but I had an experience when I was up north when I was shooting for Animal Planet, and I was demoing a IR camera. They had never seen footage from an IR camera. This is way back. Because I was working on a bear documentary. Sorry if my voice is kind of cracking in and out. I was working on a bear documentary called The Man Who Walks with Bears, and I wanted to use IR camera in it, and they had never seen it. So I said, well, I'll go get footage, and then, you know, you guys can take a look at it. Okay. So I went up north, and I was going to get footage of bears with IR, wild bears, but I had an experience. All these flying squirrels were landing on me. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I had a buddy with me, and every time I stopped talking, they would all leave. And I'd start talking to my buddy again. They'd all start landing on me. And they're covered on me. I had them all over my head, my back, my arms, everywhere. And they were real friendly, and they just seemed to be looking for something or whatever. I couldn't figure it out. Never had that experience again. But then I thought, one day I was just thinking, I wonder if flying squirrels like wood ticks. Oh, hell, I looked it up, and they're like their favorite food.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, I wonder if they like grooming other animals. Just like the muskrats, I always observe them grooming the beavers.
Yeah.
You see how these little chains kind of happen in your brain.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, I wonder if flying squirrels are like groom deer, groom Bigfoots. How do Bigfoots deal with the wood tick problem?
Wow.
Which is it's a huge deal. I mean, you can walk 5 feet up in the woods here in the spring in Minnesota or Michigan, and you're covered with them.
Yeah.
Hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not fun. And
No.
and I'm really into symbiotic relationships. And I just thought, well, I just wonder if Bigfoots get groomed by something. Flying squirrels would be the obvious choice. Well, the more research I did, the more I realized flying squirrels do groom other animals. They do eat a ton of wood ticks. It's their favorite food. But they glow, and then they found out they glow. And I'm like, but I already have this theory that Bigfoots see in UV. Well, then Bigfoots will be able to see the flying squirrels in their UV vision. Well, what would be the reason for that? Well, maybe they glow also. You know, so everything just started kind of falling in place, like beyond coincidence. And so then it hit me, duh, I wonder if Bigfoots have porphyrin in their hair because that's what flying squirrels do.
Right.
So that's how my terrible brain gets diarrhea.
But it works.
No, I find it fascinating. First time
Yeah.
I've really heard these theories or what you're coming across with your research. It is fast. It kind of reminds me of it's it's not the same as what you're talking about because we're talking about mentioned Michigan with all the ticks.
Yeah.
Well, also where I live, it was funny because I never knew this, Doug, but I was just reading up how to get rid of all these mosquitoes. I was sick and tired of buying the off and all this and spraying, outside. It's just repulsive smell. No one likes it. Everyone goes in the house. And then, of course, okay, you can get the electric zapper out in the yard. Well, my yard's relatively big. And it's like, yeah, I got to put up all these. No. And then you know what I did? And I started doing some further research and, of course, put up bat houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
Attract all the bats, and the bats, of course, I did not know this, eat mosquitoes and other insects, by the way. And so after a year, I put them up, and I think it was in the fall. And by the next summer, my mosquito population was just cut in half. So kind of the same what you're saying as far as the squirrels with the eating the ticks off other animals, and for sure you would think Bigfoot that's roaming like all these other mammals or animals roaming the forests,
Mm-hmm.
they're infested with them, and I'm sure that most all the other creatures of the woods do utilize that, right?
Well, yeah, but think about how long the hair is on a Bigfoot. They have hair,
Right.
not fur. And it would be kind of a problem.
Yeah.
What about a lone male? Maybe a family group, they can groom each other. But what about a lone male? It just seemed like those flying squirrels were accustomed to doing what they were doing.
Sure.
I can't get that out of my head. They didn't all land on me because they thought it was like Cinderella or some bull crap. They were landing on me for a purpose.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was like they had done this before. I was an upright, hominid thing, and I'm there. And as long as I made any kind of noise, they were okay being on me. But they were all seemed to be scampering, looking for crap.
Wow.
I just thought, just bugged me for years, and then it hit me. And I really do think all these experiences, like a ladder, happen to you for a reason, so then you can make better conclusions down the line.
Sure.
But once again, I could be way off. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying it's a great theory, and it leads me to in search of a chemical now.
Mm-hmm.
And at least we'll have some answers.
Well, that's a great thing about talking about all these topics and subjects because there's no right or wrong answers. Some work, some don't, and much like yourself, it's just trial and error and research coming with innovative
absolutely.
ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I did the giant squid, it was all based on those trout. It was based on my same theory that the big squid, the ones that get to these massive 60-foot proportions, because squid don't live that long, that they were females that just never laid eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just stayed deep, and they let the smaller squid swim up and down the water column to gather food. And then when they came down, they got eaten by the big female. That's the kraken. Because when you get so big, there's no way they can go back up because they'll never get back down because of all the ammonia and gases in their blood and whatnot, which is why they wash up. If they do go up, they're not coming back down. They're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was that kind of brain diarrhea that led me to my theory on how to get footage of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. So there you go.
Interesting.
Absolutely fascinating. And I've got to ask you this. So we're on the topic of wildlife and animals. And of course, it always comes up because thank you, Chris, for that. That's awesome. Appreciate you. Chat from Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
And his evening, guys. The Apache call ravens the eyes of the hairy man. Similar, he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have to bring this up, Doug.
Yes, please.
Wildlife, animals. We've been doing this while you've been doing this for a long time. I just started doing this 3-4 years ago, whatever. Oh, the podcast, but had my first experience in 2018. Have you come across anything that lends you to believe that some of these creatures also perhaps are not just all flesh and blood, but there's some other element, perhaps supernatural element associated with them?
Well, not directly. There was a time that me and 3 other people were bum rushed. We could hear it.
Mhm.
We could hear something big, coming towards us, like an elephant running towards us. We hear the brush and the crap breaking and everything, but there was nothing there. We all ran like children. We just ran. It was all instinct. We just push because there was something big charging us, but there was nothing there. I've seen orbs, plenty. Our last expedition up to Snow Grove in August, there were tons of orbs seen, probably 10, 15 orbs seen, red ones. I didn't see any on that trip, but everybody else did. But I do know that what we might think is, woo or supernatural may just be normal,
True. That's true.
It doesn't bother me that way because, God, if I took my iPhone back 200 years into the past, that would be, paranormal.
That would be.
Just because something's psychic doesn't mean it's paranormal.
No. Well, paranormal, isn't the paranormal just something that we don't understand?
It's just something we don't understand. So I just don't worry about it. And I've seen glitches in the Matrix kind of things happen throughout my life. So that doesn't, there's quantum things that they just happen.
Yes.
If you're aware, you're going to notice there's quantum entanglement and untanglement at times. You set something down and it disappears for a month. And then it comes back. Like, what the hell?
You know
what I'm talking about.
I do.
And it's, what is that? Or I remember one of the greatest stories I can tell of a glitch would be me and my daughter went up north to a family reunion. And we went into our hotel room to drop our luggage off. And then we were walking towards the elevator, and there was this big family that came out of the elevator, very distinct, their clothing, the way they looked. Fine. We, let them pass us. We get in the elevator, we go down, we get out the front door, and here that same family's now walking towards us from outside. And my daughter looked at me and goes, glitch.
Yeah.
Because it was the same family, but how did they get out ahead of us outside heading for you know what I mean? There was a time glitch there. And that's a great example. I mean, not everything's linear. So is that paranormal or is it just normal? I think it's just normal. I just look at that stuff as just part of life. Hey.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't think there's a lot. I think there's a lot less linear than people think in our lives, especially if you really pay attention. And if you get a little lucky, you'll witness a few strange things now and then. Thank God it doesn't happen all the time, though.
Oh, not all the time, because I've seen a lot of strange things outside of my Bigfoot that are just like, wow.
So, but
wow.
So what I'm getting at, nothing would surprise me.
Nothing surprise. Yeah, exactly. And I like that definition. I like the way you present it, because if you look at it in those terms, it's just normal, right, Krista? To me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of strange things that happen in the woods with people too. That we can't, the people come back with strange stories going, hey, I was walking on a trail and all of a sudden, like, I looked and I wasn't on the trail anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. I got a story like that. Absolutely. Guy's walking on a trail. I talked to this guy about it. He's been hunting, camping here for 10, 15 years, walking on a trail. Very familiar. His favorite hunting and fishing ground. Goes by himself all the time. He's going up the river that he always traversed amongst the river because he used that as his location, his direction. Yeah. And he says, Rob, for the life of me, I ended up in an area of the woods that I was unfamiliar with.
Mhm.
And he goes, and all of a sudden I couldn't hear the roaming of the water, the rushing of the water. The river was
Yeah.
gone. And he says he literally was frightened because he literally was lost. And he says, how can I be lost in an area I know like the back of my hand for the last 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
And he started getting a little frightened, and he says, Rob, I sat on this stump, and in fact, we were talking about elementals, and we were talking about spirits of the forest on this particular show. And then, hey, remember Kristen? He's like, boom, got up, and all of a sudden he's seen these figments. He thought it was his imagination, but it was like faces he's seen in the trees are popping up along the tree line. This guy's telling me. I'm like, and then led him back to his area. And all of a sudden, the environment got familiar again.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, what in the hell was that? Did I walk through a portal? Did I experience spirits of the woods? I'm like, hey, to me, that's what it sounds like. I never experienced that, but these things I believe do go on, Doug. And I also do believe this, that when people experience things, I believe they do, but I don't think it's always what they believe it to be, because the mind can be very tricky.
Oh yeah,
Especially out in the open
Absolutely.
ocean or the open woods.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean, it's just the world is complicated. The way we perceive the world is complicated. The way our eyes perceive things, the way our brain perceive things. Our brain will make up for many things. It makes up for color. Like purple doesn't even exist. You know that? Purple doesn't exist. There's RGB, but there's no purple. So when we see purple, it's just our brain making up that color.
Wow.
And then there's just so many examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine many people have seen Bigfoot that don't remember seeing it. I'm sure many people have seen Bigfoots that maybe didn't see it. It was just something, a play of light.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen a number of them at this point. Thank God, with witnesses moving.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that if you have a sighting and it's not moving, it's probably not a Bigfoot.
Right.
I don't take the ones where it was just hiding but didn't move. I got scared and I left. Well, that may have been just a tree trunk. But if you actually see the damn thing moving, walking away, or waving its arms or doing something, then you got a good sighting.
Or the tree truck manifests into a Bigfoot. Now
Or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get those too.
We live in an amazing world, and I guess the sooner we all realize that, the better. Reality has got a lot of secrets it's hiding from us still.
Yeah.
A lot of secrets.
A lot of unknown out there in the woodlands, undiscovered, billions of acreage undiscovered, as well as the vast ocean.
Well, the forest is such a mystery. We know nothing about the forest. I'm surprised more people aren't fascinated with the forest itself. I mean, it's got a network of mycelium that all talk to each other like the internet. Where a tree over here can talk to a tree.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
30 miles away. There's like super organisms under a forest.
It's like the forest is the natural internet. It's the first internet.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a super organism.
Mm-hmm.
These are organisms that are way bigger than all of our computers that have been going on for, millions of years. God knows the intelligence of a forest.
Yeah.
Do you even go ahead, Chris? I'll let the dog out anyway. I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. You had mentioned earlier that you had seen orbs.
Oh, sure.
Yep. And I have two out in the woods, and I come from a paranormal background, and I've seen them in like haunted locations with my eyes, big blue orbs. However, I was at the Land Between the Lakes, and the first time I ever saw one out in the middle of the woods was there, and it wasn't just me. There was about 10 of us there. And we were all seeing different ones, and there was nobody else out there. This was the middle of winter. It was like 20 degrees outside. It was cold. There was nobody else out there. And then we have a friend who actually had saw them also. But the ones he saw were intelligent. They would respond to him.
Yeah.
So what do you believe that they might be?
I don't know. I've had a lot of experiences with orbs. I've had them approach me even in the day,
Oh, wow.
like within feet.
Wow.
Broad daylight. And I don't know what they are. They'll definitely react to things that you do. I remember Yvette, we were out on the deck right here at my house, and an orb came around and kind of parked right by the deck rail, blacker than black, like Vanta black. And she just kind of pulled back, and it did the same thing.
Wow.
And then, of course, she got my attention, probably through screaming. She got my attention. So, and I see it, and I'm like, okay, I'm a photojournalist. So the first thing I want to do is get it documented with my camera. So I grab my phone, turn it on carefully, not trying to surprise this living thing, which I believe is living. And I get it going. I start rolling, and I whip my phone up, and literally while my arm is going like this, it's zipping up to the clouds.
Wow.
And I did get footage of it, but then we looked at the footage. Of course, it's small. It's up in the clouds. And then we came back out, and here comes another one, but this time out of our lake. Just comes right out of the lake, right in front of us, straight up to the clouds at the time. So I don't know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I don't either.
There could be many things we're dealing with. Some could be just plasma. Some could be high intelligence creatures. Some could be drones from another world. Some could be maybe they're spirits. They're God, who knows? I don't know. No answers, but I have seen them. We had probably the most interesting orb thing we had happen. Where we were once again happened in our backyard. We were down by the fire pit. And here comes an orb right over the top of the neighbor's roof, heading towards us and over the bay. And all of a sudden, the swing sets on both sides of the neighbors started swinging. We thought, well, that's kind of weird. There's no wind, right? It was just dead calm. And all of a sudden, car alarms started going off. Well, that was kind of weird. Then the dogs started all barking. Well, then it didn't get real weird until all the docks on the lake, all of them started going boom, 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 boom,
wow,
boom, boom. And they're, I think, mainly aluminum, not even magnetic.
Yeah.
And so all these docks are bouncing and banging while this orb is flying over. Then the orb passed finally. Everything went back to normal. But to see all of those things happen, including car alarms going off and from an orb, it's pretty interesting.
That's really
definitely had effects on things. But the other orbs we've seen, there's no effect.
Right.
Why did that one?
Right.
Why did that affect car alarms,
Exactly.
swing sets, metal, or all of the docks on the lake? I mean, to see, you could have heard this. That was just like,
amazing.
Boom, 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 boom. And they're all just bouncing up and down. Not a wave on the lake, just dead calm.
Just the docks.
Just the docks. Yeah. True story. I never told that story.
Interesting. I wonder, because, people claim, they see different colors and different sizes, if that has anything to do with anything, I guess.
I don't know. I've seen sparking ones. I've seen color changing ones. I've seen color changing sparking ones. I've seen them in groups. I've seen red ones, blue ones. I've seen them close up. I've seen them far away. I've seen a lot of white ones. The last ones me and Yvette saw were two pink ones, bright pink, Pepto-Bismol pink, traveling in a pair at an angle. So there's like one there and there. They came right to our car, and then one zipped off and one blinked out.
Wow.
And I don't know what they are. What do they mean? I
was going to ask you about the orb. What? Everybody's seen these orbs. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what they are.
You can't either. That's what I just asked them. Yeah, like.
Okay.
Well, they could be a million different things. I mean, each time you see one, it could be a different thing.
You think it's a life form?
Oh, I definitely think there's intelligence there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they all seem to have some form of intelligence. But it could be the intelligence of a sunfish, right?
Right.
I didn't say high intelligence.
Right.
Right.
Some
I mean, it
intelligence.
could be the intelligence of a bird or a goldfish or, plankton. Maybe it's sky plankton. Maybe there's creatures out there that, I mean, think about it. From the ground to about 300 miles out is an environment full of things like Pseudomonas syringae, bacterias, algae, dust from all over the world. There's all sorts of nutrients in the atmosphere.
hmm
Maybe there's just creatures that have a different diet.
hmm
They're very lightweight, and maybe they eat sunshine. Maybe they come down to where lower to just absorb water. So they could be just some kind of environmental, like sky plankton. Think of it
Okay.
as just sky plankton.
Yeah.
Once again, it's just another theory.
They're all theories. We hear these stories too, Doug, about people that talking about the orbs, the subject of the orbs. I've gotten many. You've probably gotten many. Chris has heard them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like using that word coincidence. I'm not a big believer. I know Chris does not. Brandy's in the chat room. That's why I said Brandy.
Yes. Brandy is in the chat.
What do you make of all these accounts where there's an orb floating about the tree line or anywhere out in the forest, and we have these reports now of a sighting of a Bigfoot, or they've seen a Bigfoot emerge from the orb, or maybe not even emerge, not
Sure.
suggesting it as a portal. You think there's any? I think that all these things are related somehow, perhaps on our
Right.
level.
All of this stuff could be related. For all we know, black bears come out of orbs.
Right. Yeah. We don't.
I really like that, because I never even, we're so concentrated on these cryptids.
Right. What about
the
regular
other
animals?
wildlife, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, how do these animals show up after they're extinct for hundreds of years or whatever, 100 years? All of a sudden they're back.
Good
You know,
question.
these what is that? Is that a Lazarus animal they call them? Or they just had some kind of mink that showed up somewhere that hasn't been seen in 200 years. Like, okay.
hmm
So we don't know anything. We just have to admit we know nothing, and that if you're a person and you're obviously okay. For instance, everybody in your chat is higher intelligence than the average person by far. Why? Well, they want to learn. They're here to learn.
hmm
They want to learn. They're just interested. They're more open-minded. They're just learn.
Right.
And so there's so many opportunities for everybody to gather new information, be a good citizen scientist, come up with theories, test them, try to lure orbs in. Maybe you'll be the one that'll solve it. I don't know. All I know is there's so many mysteries, and I've been lucky enough to witness a lot of them, and I always wonder about that. Does
Mhm.
that mean I'm freaky or I'm just lucky?
Right.
Am I freaky or lucky? I don't know.
Maybe both.
Yeah,
I might be freaky lucky. Yeah, exactly.
freaky lucky. I mean, because I think that people have had these experiences with whatever the phenomenon is. They're far and few and in between, I think. And, there's been people that have been researchers 20 years, 30 years. They're on the trail of Bigfoot or whatever they're investigating. Haven't seen one. Never.
Yeah.
Maybe they've seen a track. Maybe they heard a whoop. Maybe they've come across some tree breaks and twists, but never seen one. But you have it's always to me the average Joe out there with their family camping
Mhm.
that do not have any intent. So I think a lot of these creatures have that a superior ability to read your intentions. This person, they're out here looking for Bigfoot. So the Bigfoot, they stay away. Or you have a family that couldn't give two craps and a nickel about Bigfoot,
Yeah.
but then they're the ones that you get a lot of these reports that see them for the very first time.
Well, it's, the mystery is not going to go away because it's fueled
Yeah.
every day. There's fuel behind it. And when you have a mystery as cool as Bigfoot, a big, tall, hairy thing, and it's fueled every day by new sightings. And that's the reason that I work so hard on this, because it affects a lot of people. I think there's a lot more people that have had sightings. Don't you agree, Krista? Than
Absolutely.
than have ever come forward. I think we'd all freak out if we knew how many people have actually had a road crossing, or some. It doesn't have to be eventful. It can be just uneventful.
Oh yeah, you're. I love that you said that, because I've said this several times. Because I do a lot of encounter stories from people that want to be in anonymity. Will send me a story that they want me to, put out there, which I've done. In fact, the 2 books are about all of those, which is great. And because the bottom line is, they're fearful for their job, to be judged, be deemed a freak.
Right.
But it's something that's been on their mind in many cases for years. When I experienced mine, I didn't want to tell anybody because I knew what I saw, but who do you go to trust? You're just telling a tall tale, Rob, this, that, or the other. And there's so many people that keep this suppressed. And Doug, that a lot of people end up driving themselves to have a little mental issues because they don't know where to turn to. So I think one of the reasons why doing the shows, and you've got your show that you do all the time.
Yeah, it's good. It's good therapy, I think.
Yeah.
For everybody involved. But the audiences are like, there's so many choices that they could be, they could be wasting time watching a Western, on TV. There's just so many choices. And the fact they're here and they're asking questions and they're interested in this just tells me that, they really are looking for answers. And if you're looking for answers, people, and you care, that makes you so much more intelligent than the average person. You should be very, very proud of yourself for being curious.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You mentioned, about people, a lot of people not coming forward about their encounters and things like that. What do you think the population is out there of them? Because me personally, I think there's a lot more out there than we really think.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I kind of reasoned through a whole bunch of them. I always like to go to the black bear population. Where do you live, Krista? Missouri?
I'm in Missouri.
Missouri. Okay. Have you seen a black bear this year?
Not this year, no.
Have you seen one last year?
It's been about 3 years. I saw one in the state of Missouri.
Okay. And I can ask that same question up here in Minnesota. We have 40,000 black bears in Minnesota. 40,000 right here in this state.
Yeah.
Most people have never seen a wild black bear.
Wow.
Most, I'm going to guess it's probably 5 to 10% have ever seen a black bear in their life. I'm talking asking 50-year-old people. So if you take that and then you just kind of keep scaling it back, I would say between 4 and 10,000 for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if there were way more, or half the amount that I mentioned. I wouldn't be shocked, right? Yeah. Because these are creatures that are definitely on the move, right? They're moving. They have a vast or a big area, and I think they're always on the move. So one creature can be seen many times.
Absolutely.
In the time of a year, I do know this, that we know there's got to be at least 2,000 to 3,000, or you'd have so much inbreeding. Yeah. There just has to be. So I've heard estimates up to 50,000, and that doesn't. I wouldn't sit there and lay down my life for an argument. against 50,000 of these. You know, I'm talking North America.
Sure. And like Missouri, we're full of caves. We're the cave state, and there's all these other states that have caves.
Yeah.
So I mean, perfect places for them to go, even in the wintertime, cave stay, a nice balmy 50-something degrees all year.
Yeah, it's a mild climate.
Mhm.
You guys have kind of a mild climate. And I would imagine there's a lot of migration that happens with, once again, that migration thing with some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think some don't migrate.
Yeah, I would agree.
I just think, and that's why we can't get a pattern,
Mm-hmm.
because some do, some don't.
Right.
Some seem to go up and down the St. Croix River Valley because, like in Minnesota here, that separates Wisconsin and Minnesota, because in the fall and in the spring, we get a lot more reports.
Yeah.
So that indicates some of them are migrating, but other ones might just go winter.
Right.
I love winter. I love winter. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
I love eating meat and things. And other ones are like, I hate meat.
Yeah.
I want to follow the berries.
Mm-hmm.
They figure that out with deer too, that deer are really very individual. They don't all eat the same plants. They're picky. So based on that, I just think that's why we can't get a handle on these things. They're very much individuals.
Right.
I've heard people say that, well, Bigfoot or whatever, or these cryptids, there's a lot of them in these barren wastelands. And I'm like, okay, to me, Doug, and he says why some grow to be 12, 15, 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But when they make mention of a wasteland, maybe Antarctica, maybe somewhere in Alaska, where it's deathly cold, right? And I'm thinking, when I hear that told to me, I'm thinking that there's probably less there, because I would be of the opinion that when they hang out where there's an abundance of water, a food supply, it kind of would squelch those theories about.
Yeah, well, most animals go where the food is.
Right, okay.
Bears don't hibernate because of the cold. They hibernate because the food supply dries up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Their favorite foods are gone. Everything, all the plant life becomes cellulose. It's just unnutritious. So they don't give a crap about the cold.
Mm-hmm.
If they did, they wouldn't. A lot of them will just den right on the top of the ground and let the snow fall on them. They don't give a crap. They're just denning because they're starving.
Mm-hmm.
So they form a fecal plug and they stop eating and they just kind of go into a stupor. But they don't really hibernate either. They're just like, licking and grooming themselves and bored. And you should see all the behavior that we recorded. And then, of course, the females give birth in January and they got to tend to their cubs and they haven't eaten. That's why they got to fatten up in the fall. I think Bigfoot's very much maybe the same way in the winter. It's kind of just rest a lot.
Right.
I don't think they would form like a fecal plug or do anything like that. I think they would just rest. Just a lot more rest, they get up and do what you got to do, and maybe have a deer or two with a broken leg, that's still alive over here that you can kind of harvest when you want, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, meat's around all year.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be other foods that they don't mind eating. Those lichens can, they can be very starchy and sugary. There can be quite a bit of starch if you're strong enough to get them up in cattail roots over the winter. You haven't lived if you haven't eaten cattails. I mean,
I've never eaten cattails.
Oh yeah, you go after the root,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a potato, like an oniony potato.
Oh, wow.
Fry them up with butter. It's really good. But you do that in the spring, right? But those things are pretty nutritious, probably by late fall already.
Wow.
So that would provide food. There's a lot of things they could eat, but I just think they rest a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But some, I think, head to Missouri. I would. I like the warm. I'd book.
Yeah.
The able-bodied ones, maybe
Right.
the old dudes are just like, screw it. I'm just gonna rest here.
There you go.
I don't know. Who knows?
That we don't. You talked about the footprint in front of the stump and in back of the stump, and just
Yes.
how it walked over it. Throughout your research and your career with all of this, have you ever seen a physical Bigfoot in your lifetime that you think might have been?
Oh yeah, no, we've had some pretty good sightings. We've had the last one wasn't even 4 miles from my house.
Hmm.
Long story, but we were driving back, and it's an area where there's numerous sightings, and we're always looking when we go through that area. It's a whole bunch of eutrophicated lakes that are swampy. They're old lakes.
Mhm.
There's no houses on them, and they're just big forested areas and stuff. And we see this creature just stomping through, maybe 20 feet off the road, just stomping through the alders and kind of the ditch and the swampy ditch, and it's just going right through. I mean, just trees are just falling as it's walking, and it's heading into an area where there's been numerous sightings.
Wow.
And we just sat there in shock watching this thing. And the most unique thing about it was the hair of it. It was speckled gray and white, black, gray, and white. It was absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, but we didn't get to see the face.
Yeah.
So how much does a sighting count when you don't get to see the face? Probably a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I consider them, like 3/4 of an A sighting. But it was walking, it was moving, it was just plowing, it was big. We have that one, and then there was another one up on Highway 69 up by Mille Lacs Lake, which is one of our biggest lakes. You cannot see across it. Right, thick northern Minnesota, just thick forest. And we're driving home late from way up north, and we see what we think is a moose up ahead. And we think the moose is like waving its antlers, like moving its head, side to side. And then we got a little closer. I'm like, I don't think that's not a moose. And we see him. This thing is standing with its back to us again, and we could then see fingers. We could see the hair under the arms. Huge animal, probably at least 8.5, not maybe even 9 feet tall. And it's just waving its arms back like a hula dancer. But we realized it was drying off.
Wow.
You could see the wind blowing on its hair, and it looked like it was really clean looking, like it had gone for a swim, and it was just drying off before it walked back into the forest. And we saw that in the headlights of my car, like
That's cool.
2 feet off the side of the road, and saw it, moving quite a bit. And we even got to see when you can see the fingers, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But once again, I still have not had that facial sighting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 3/4 sighting, guys.
Well, yeah, let's
Incredible though.
It's like, what else could it be?
Right. Right.
I mean, I'm not without mistakes, but I'm kind of, that's what I do. Study wildlife. I've been all over the world study wildlife. And when you cannot place something, it really messes with your mind. But then when you do finally get to really figure out what you're looking at, what it's not, and so what's left? A Sasquatch.
Very cool.
You talk about the mind, and we've talked to certain people. A lot of them, though, happen to come from First Nations tribes and such. And
Yeah.
you talk about communications with Bigfoot and so on. And I remember stories years ago that Bigfoot was traded with goods, actually, from stories I've read. How true are they? I don't know. I wasn't there. But you get these people to tell you that they can communicate with Bigfoot. I guess you would call it mind speak or telepathy, primarily amongst, not only just us folk, but also the First Nations. Do you believe that? And if so, what would your basis be behind it? Do you think that people do communicate with some of these cryptids?
I don't know. I've never known anybody who has, but I've heard the stories. I've communicated, or I've been communicated with when they're throwing rocks at me. It's happened many times. I guess that's communicating.
Well, that is a form of communication.
I've never reciprocated and whipped a rock personally at one of them.
No, I don't think you attempted anyways.
But yeah, you're talking about like the mind speak and all that.
Yeah, you believe that theory? I mean,
I believe in telepathy.
Right.
And so I'm open to it. I'm totally open to it. But I don't believe like every Tom, Dick, and Harry that goes, oh yeah, Bigfoot was telling me everything about the world. Like, okay.
Right.
No.
But on the same token, they're learning about autistic people who are nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
They're proven that these nonverbal autistic people, one, have a lot more endings on their vagus nerves. Two, they have been almost 100% accurate with telepathy.
Wow.
And that's like, okay, that's a little bit mind blowing. I recommend everybody, if you haven't done it, go listen to the telepathy tapes on YouTube or wherever wherever podcasts are found.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about nonverbal autistic people.
Yeah.
Well, Bigfoot has a lot of autistic traits. I'm sorry, I've witnessed it firsthand.
Interesting.
Christopher Noel was the first person to put it into words, but I had experiences with that, way back when I would witness them like opening and closing something 50 times and then leaving for a while and coming back and doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, why did you do that? Well, that's kind of an autistic trait.
Yeah.
It's and then the stemming or stimming, I guess. Sorry, stimming. Maybe that's what that thing was doing when we saw it, waving its arms back and forth. And I remember other reports from researchers I've been with on expedition that witnessed a creature what could be described as stimming, the rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
We've all heard those stories. That's autistic. So maybe these things are partly autistic. Christopher Noel is the one that came up with that theory. But man, when I heard it, I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense. And then the autistic and the mind speak thing, well, maybe that all fits. So we'll just kind of leave we'll leave that conclusion for later.
Yeah, no, I agree. I get you on that. And I even think when we talk about communication, even you come across a bunch of researchers or what you even see on YouTube or wherever you look, these X formations, these structures out in the woods that are not man-made. I mean, they can't be.
Well, also autism, they like to organize things.
Okay.
You give an autistic boy 150 Hot Wheels, I guarantee by next morning they're all going to be organized by color.
Yeah,
right.
They're all going to be beautifully lined up. That's kind of, so the hiding is an autistic behavior. Stimming, communicate, like beating, like, drumming, banging on stuff. All of these are autistic behaviors. It's interesting, the correlation. And so it's all we can do is just be kind of aware of that. Not to come to any conclusions, but just be aware.
Sure.
Maybe that's where they can spot trail cams because there's a lot of savant, autistic traits suggest too that many of these kids are savants. Man, they have a photographic memory.
Mm-hmm.
Bears have a photographic memory. Are bears autistic? Maybe. Is that a possible survival thing? Right? It's just autism just helps us survive. Were we all autistic at one point? When we were early man. All these things we just don't know anything about. But I'll tell you, be aware of this autistic parallel. You may notice something in your own, when you're talking to witnesses, you might want to look for those patterns. I think I'm for sure there's a pattern there,
Mhm.
almost positive, but I don't know what it means. Not yet.
There's still so much we just don't know. You know.
No. Excuse me.
And we talked so much about, excuse me, I caught it. I just caught your cough.
I have a cough button, but my mouse wasn't in a position to hit it here. I'm going to do this. Hold on.
There you go.
The tickle, I just can't fight it anymore.
You know, it catches up to you. I think we have a couple questions too that were in the chat room. I think Chris was starting a couple that
Fire
I think
away.
are relevant. If
Do you want me to bring them up, or you want to bring them up?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead and bring them up. I'm gonna visit my tissue box
Okay.
for just a second here.
Yeah, no
Go
problem.
right ahead.
With that being said, thanks for everybody for coming on in today. It's been a great show with Doug Hajicek. I want to thank Keith and Joanne and Chris for the super chats and the memberships. Thank you so much for that, you guys. Really appreciate it from you guys. If you're new, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michiganrob on YouTube, The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, of course. Hey, and also give us a thumbs up, would you? Like the show. It does help promote the algorithms for the shows across the board. So appreciate each and every single one of you. I want to thank Doug for coming on. And yes, Doug is a trooper. You know, he's a producer because, you know, the show must go on despite being a little under the weather. So give some love to Doug. And you can find Doug also on his Untold Radio AM. You can find that. Kristo's been dropping the links, and I think the Sunny was as well. So he's kind of like a big network too on YouTube and the radio. I think Doug's got shows on. We'll talk to him a little later. I think he's got shows with that like almost as much as we're on, with different hosts and co-hosts, and talking about all these things that we're talking about here today. And Doug, while you're gone,
I'm back. I'm a half a box of Kleenexes to go here. We're good.
Yeah. And really briefly, while you were doing that, I was giving you a shout out for Untold Radio AM, but you kind of have a network yourself going on. On
the
YouTube.
Untold Radio Network. Sure. Yeah. If people want to stop over there and subscribe or visit, at least my show, it's on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. And then there's like 10 other shows they can enjoy.
Yeah, I was making mention. You kind of like us. There's always something on during the week.
Exactly.
Different times, varieties for everybody's schedules. So you can, if you subscribe, hit the alert bell. You're bound to find something.
Bound.
I say, I know. I was thinking, conjuring up a spirit. I was bound by a spirit. But no, Chris. So we've got. If you want to go over a couple
questions, let me go to the first one here.
Sure.
Mike asked. He said, "Question: in your opinion, when did these type of shows?" He was talking about MonsterQuest. Start to get too Hollywood?
Well, I think they've, always had a little pizzazz, even in Search of that I grew up watching. They wouldn't have hired Leonard Nimoy to narrate it, if they didn't want a little Hollywood in it.
Absolutely.
But I guess the main thing is I'm not there when they're filming. Is how real are they? Because the participants don't always have a say in that. In my case, I edited MonsterQuest, right? Wow. I had 100% say in it.
Okay.
I was the first line. Where these other shows, the production company's doing the editing, and I have no idea. I'm just not there. But I do know, like, for instance, I know Russell Accord from Expedition Bigfoot. I know Matt Moneymaker. I know Bobo and Cliff and, and all those guys from Finding Bigfoot. And I'm just now starting to meet some of the people from Expedition Bigfoot. I don't see anything that those guys would fake that they would. But, I'm not there filming. So I can't, I'm not the right person to speak on it.
I'm really good.
I just pray that they get something really cool and they'll be really.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's all I can do.
I know in the past, there's a lot of TV shows, and I'm talking on the paranormal side, that, I'm really good friends with the Kling brothers, and they did the Ghost Lab TV show years ago. And, the reason they no longer, that show went off air because they wanted them to fake evidence.
Yeah, gotcha.
To do it. So, that's your reputation. So like you talk about a lot of these people, I don't believe they do that either, because that is your reputation.
No, I don't think, these guys, I don't think any of them would do it. But that doesn't mean the network or the company editing, they have all the power, right? The editors.
Right, absolutely. And more so maybe with the ghost type of things, because, you sit in a room, a quiet, dark room for a long time before anything happens sometimes, so they got to put something in there, so absolutely.
The key is, like when I was doing MonsterQuest, and I'm going to give you an example of nothing happening and how I made something happen, but I didn't make anything happen. So we're up at Snellgrove. I was up there with Dr. Jeff Meldrum, my son, some other researchers, and we're up there. And we went up there we had more tricks up our sleeve. We even built a blind in the cabin so we could be monitoring cameras live, but it looks like everybody's sleeping, right? Stuff like that. But nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I going to do? I wasn't going to fake anything. All I got to do is figure out to tell the story. Well, the float plane came in to resupply us and just check on us. The pilot came in, he said, "Oh, there was a sighting 50 air miles from here in Grassy Narrows."
Mm-hmm.
Well, me as a producer, like, screw it, we're closing down here and you guys are going to Grassy Narrows. So that's how I saved the show, not by faking stuff up at Snell, but by just switching gears and putting more emphasis on another location, because it does tie into Snellgrove, because the blueberries weren't ripe at Snell, but they had been ripe there. Mm. So that just tells even more of a story of these creatures eating blueberries and eating them and then traveling north as they ripen. So, I came up with that whole thing, talked to Jeff about it. Jeff's like, yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. Mm-hmm. They're not here, but they're down 50 miles south. And so they all flew down there and did the rest of the show is based on that.
Wow.
So is that faking it or making it happen because I said, guys, get in the plane and go?
Right.
Well, I guess. I mean, it didn't happen naturally. We weren't planning that, but so that's still not fake, though.
Right.
Just storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to learn how to direct the story, if nothing's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not faking anything. We didn't fake those witnesses. It went down. We found them and interviewed these two Native women that had this amazing sighting. And then, of course, Esteban was with us, Esteban Sarmiento. And he wanted to see the tracks and all this stuff. So it was a whole cool story that could be told. Mm-hmm. So that's the key. If, you don't need to fake. You just need to know how to tell a story.
Right.
Yep. Next question is from my blog, Sunny11. She says, Doug, have you found consecutive tracks that can measure the speed Bigfoot moves?
Well, that's a really good question. And there's no way to really probably calculate speed based on the tracks. So we have two types of tracks. We have inline tightrope type tracks, which I believe they do when they're on a mission, like they're migrating from point A to point B. They get in a stride. The one foot goes right in front of the other. And I think they're making really good time. I estimate probably at about maybe 12 miles an hour, maybe a little quicker when they get into that stride. But a Bigfoot running, I mean, I hear everything up to 50 miles an hour. And of course, you're going to have a bigger stride, right, between each print. You start getting up to, 30, 40 miles an hour, and you're going to have a huge stride.
Sure.
That's going to happen. So it would be the length of the stride could give you a bit of an estimate at how fast they were going. The longer the stride, the faster they're moving.
Sure.
Mhm.
But their strides can be massive, even just, doing that quick tightrope walk.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Next question. Mike asks, why do you think Loch Ness doesn't get much attention these days anymore?
Because there's nothing fueling it, or very few things, but it just got fueled by some new images. I've not had time to study them, but that was from last week.
I did that on Saturday night.
Are they gunk? Bad?
Krista, remember we did on a Saturday night show? I showed the one image, the new information on Loch Ness Monster.
Yep.
I'm not going to say, Doug, we weren't too impressed.
Weren't too impressed. Okay.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're dealing with something where there can be so many disturbances on a lake, from waves to, sturgeon to fish to things. I don't know anything about the Loch Ness thing any more than anybody else, than the experts. But, there's definitely, I'm open to it being like a giant Wells catfish. They're definitely open to some type of sharks that could even get into the loch.
So are you going to rule out
Inverness?
Are you going to rule out the plesiosaur?
No, I wouldn't rule it out
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Because there have been sightings on land, and they describe a very dinosaur-like creature.
Okay.
Once again, the loch is huge. It's deep. It's, who knows? I just wouldn't rule out anything. I had a proposal to History Channel to do a live sweep, like a really big side scan sonar, and drag what I call a high-speed forward and reverse camera system, to where I could have built 50 of these cameras that you can pull at pretty high speed. And literally have enough boats side by side where you can sweep the whole damn block and film almost, at least whatever whatever the spot is on the lake, the depth where the most life exists. So you'd pick that depth, which would probably be like 25, 30 feet, and you would drag the entire lake, and then you'd use side scan sonar for the whole thing all the way to the bottom, and just start at one end and do the whole thing, and don't quit. Literally bring your own, bring extra fuel, and keep the boats. It'd be a big coordinated effort. But I proposed to do that live, and it got called off at the last minute.
Wow.
Just thinking it couldn't, couldn't be done. And I'm like, I had total confidence I could have pulled it off.
Yeah.
You just got to have the financing to do it.
Sure.
But I think there'd be so much support for doing that kind of a sweep. And I think there was something done at one point, but it wasn't very thorough. This has got to be every way from Sunday.
Yeah.
Sweep it. So I don't know. Once again, I'm the guy that saw, 6 foot, 6.5 foot lake trout. So
Yeah,
I mean, that's a monster.
Yep.
the bottom line is anything's possible.
That it is.
I wouldn't rule out anything. I mean, there could be there could literally just be lake trout in
Could be.
Loch Ness that are just massive. There could be 8-foot lake trout in there.
We had in the Detroit River. I was a kid, maybe. Well, I was actually not quite a kid. I was in my early 20s, and there was reports in the Detroit News back when it was a print newspaper. They had this picture of a serpent roaming the Detroit River. And one of the very first places my dad took myself and my brother down to was at the edge of the Detroit River. Excuse me. And we fished there, and never seen anything of the nature, but we were up and down the river 7, 8, 10 miles throughout a few years that we all went together. And then we seen this picture, and people thought it was literally maybe a huge snake or maybe something related to Nessie, and this went on for like the whole spring and summer and fall for a whole year. People are having these sightings, variety of pictures. that finally it got that craze. Let's go hunt the river monster on the Detroit River. You reminded me of, you remember, we all saw the movie Jaws, 1976, where all those yahoos are out in the boats with dynamite. You guys remember that whole facade, right, of craziness that went on. That's kind of how the river was for a while. And then they finally got the monster. And you know what it was? It was a 16-foot sturgeon, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what a sturgeon is, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and they can get they can get extremely long and very sizable, and they can live for up to 100 years, I guess.
Well, I filmed a 15-foot Greenland shark in the St. Lawrence River, very much inland, right by a guy's walleye dock. And we spotted it with sonar, and then we just kept trying to catch it with our cameras, and finally we got footage of it. But that had never been filmed before. Big Greenland shark in a freshwater river.
Yeah.
We're talking like a 300-year-old animal, but right next to a guy where he catches walleyes, just a regular fishing, swimming dock. And there's this 16-foot shark there. And we busted it. And that's kind of the same thing. There's creatures living where they don't necessarily belong.
Absolutely. I'm up here in Missouri, and the Mississippi runs along here, and it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. And they've had bull sharks all the way up the Mississippi.
Absolutely. Great example.
So, yeah.
I am sure bull sharks have gotten into the Great Lakes, even though I don't think there's been any documentation, but I'm pretty sure there's a bull shark here and there.
There's been actually, now that you bring that up again, back when I was a kid, right around this same time, there was a shark that got caught up in the St. Lawrence Seaway. You can take the St. Lawrence Seaway here from Michigan. You can go all the way to the ocean.
Yep.
One did get caught up in there and ended up again in the river. And it was kind of ironic because right around the same time of that, the big sturgeon sighting. Yeah, and it drifted up and was on shore. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally those things stay pretty, they stay towards the ocean and that, the area with the ocean where the water dumps out into the ocean. But they have, God knows what's migrated up that seaway. And then from there it can get into other lakes. There could be all sorts of weird crap.
Yeah.
We talked about the forest being mysterious, which I do agree wholeheartedly. The ocean and these Great Lakes are even just as mysterious,
if not more so.
Yes.
Yeah. Moral of the story is never trust what's, may not supposed to be there, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
After I've seen what I've seen,
yes,
I'll swim where I like to swim like down in the Bahamas or somewhere where the water's really clean and clear.
Sure. Yes.
And then I at least I can see what's there out in front of me.
Yeah.
'Cause I like to swim underwater and stuff, free dive. Yeah. And as long as I can see, I just don't want to swim in murky lake water.
No,
because anything could be in that murky lake water.
I'm done with that.
I saw a UFO come out of my murky lake water. I don't want to run into a UFO under there while I'm holding my breath.
Well, they come out of Superior and Lake Michigan. Allegedly, there is a UFO base at the bottom of Lake Superior, I've heard. I don't know. But anyways, when you're on the Great Lakes or the ocean, you always need a bigger boat per Sheriff Brody from Jaws. But Krista, we got another couple before we wrap this up. So I know Doug has been a trooper with that voice.
Sorry.
And you do sound fine, though, Doug.
We got through them all.
Oh, we got through them all. Well, that's awesome. Did not know that. Well, Doug, I'm gonna let you go because I appreciate you, and I want you to take that teaspoon of honey, like I grossed you out with earlier today, and so I do appreciate you coming on. And thanks for sponsoring our conference.
My pleasure, Rob. Good meeting you, Krista. Thank you. You guys are awesome.
Yep.
I really appreciate all the intelligent questions. You guys got a great chat.
Thank you.
Great bunch of people in chat. Super, super great. So
And we're really, I know we kind of touched on it really briefly before we all take off. Where can people find you again? I know
Facebook. Facebook's the best way. I'm really prominent on Facebook, and I'm usually pretty bad about, like okaying friends, but I do it every like once a month. I'll go through and try to accept a bunch of friends. But you can text me or do the messenger if
Yeah.
you want to get a hold of me.
Mhm.
Give me a day or so to respond, and I respond to everybody. I don't think there's ever been anybody I've never responded to.
Mhm.
Try to always get back to everybody. So,
And I just looked on our calendar. We have you scheduled for Blondes and Booze on April 24th.
oh, there
right.
we go. There we go. It's coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, another
Coming
month
up.
away, a month away. Awesome.
Yeah, it'd be great.
So we'll I can talk about any damn topic you want, Krista.
Well, I want to hear more about the UFO. And
We got
we'll
I got
talk
plenty
about
of stories. You remember how old I am? You realize how old I am. And I was like, yeah, okay.
43.
Yeah, I wished. I have kids way older than 43. So
Hey, Doug, really quickly though, did you ever hear about? And I'll cut you loose. Did you ever hear about the 1997 Michigan Lake Michigan UFO?
flap.
No, the Lake Michigan, the triangle where they had in 1997, there was 360 reported UFOs caught on radar in 1997, Lake Michigan. Do you recall that story?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a Lake Michigan story that'll send chills down your spine.
Oh no!
I got all sorts of stories.
Wow.
Well,
But
maybe we'll remember that.
Part of it's just I know so many scientists and researchers and MUFON researchers, and I hear all these stories, and sometimes I hear stories that have not been published. Some of them are absolutely crazy.
Well,
just
the ones
nuts.
that haven't been published are usually the best.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, ones that they're still working on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just the Great Lakes is pretty amazing. I live, not too far from Lake Superior, and God, what a mysterious area! Which is why I wanted to put that camera system at the bottom of Lake Superior. What goes on when nobody's around?
Oh yeah.
I don't care when divers are there, because divers affect the environment. I want to put a camera, and that's what I did, way down deep, and just be able to sit there in my bed and look at this camera, like what's going to swim by.
See, that's awesome. I could do that too. I could lay back with a camera somewhere and just watch and not see nothing for hours, but I would be fascinated nonetheless.
It's creepy. I mean, it's literally creepy because we're not supposed to see certain things.
Right.
Yes.
We're not supposed to look inside a beaver lodge. It's hidden for a reason.
Right.
So when I put a camera in a beaver lodge and can sit there and watch it 24 hours a day, I get this creepy feeling like, what if I see something I shouldn't see?
Right.
I have seen some things like, what the heck? This is not something we're supposed to know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always liken it to looking into other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom of a lake, the bottom of an ocean, in a bear den. That's another dimension. We don't get to see what goes on in a bear den in the middle of winter, in the middle of the forest. So it's kind of creepy.
Interesting.
Very
So
creepy.
there you go. Anyhow, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate
Love you guys. And
we had over 100 people tune in at one point in the chat room, which was pretty cool. Thanks to everybody for coming on.
cool.
Don't forget, if you're new, please subscribe and also give us a thumbs up on your way out.
Well, I'm going to bow out of here, and you guys can wrap up. But thank you so much, guys.
Get better, and thank you so much.
All right, you guys are wonderful. All right, bye.
Doug, appreciate it. So that was a great show, Krista, with Mr. Doug Hajicek.
Absolutely.
Always a fascinating guy.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Maybe I'll
enjoyed that.
Here, I can kick from stereo. He's got it. So yeah. And you'll have him on April 23rd.
24th, I think it was. Yeah.
And what today is, of course, Tuesday. What you got going on Thursday?
We have Charlie Raymond.
Charlie Raymond from Kentucky coming on. That's right, Charlie Raymond.
Yep, he'll be on Thursday night. Yep, with Brandy and I.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Be a good show. Yeah, we're gonna talk some Bigfoot and whatever else.
And Kentucky, a very mysterious state, and yeah, that'll be a great show. I'll make sure I'll be there. So,
of course. Yep.
And keep it going. Everybody, thanks once again to everybody coming on. I appreciate you. Krista appreciates it. I appreciate the super chats and the pirates. And with that being said, I just got to find that exit button. I'm unlike text. I just have so much things to scroll through. I know where all the buttons are, and I finally scrolled where I need to be. Thanks, Krista. Love you all. Thumbs up, everybody, on your way out. BMR, Krista, we're out.
Bye-bye.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.